Okay, so let's talk about spiral notebooks. I wrote a post last summer about our system of classroom notebooks and what that looks like. I did not ever make a video to go with it, so I'm making this video a year after the original post, but I've been using spirals for a while and I'm a big fan of them. So I just want to talk through kind of what it looks like in our classroom, why, and then I'll end by saying here are the 4 reasons, similar to the post, that I find so much value in them. So, when we center spiral notebooks around community, we introduce our values to start the year over the first couple of days, including the value of community, where we use the oak tree, which its roots stretch wide, and the ability of having connection with others. And we actually, our classroom core beliefs are what we tape on the front. So students have their spiral notebook that they bring in. I've got some extras, and I got this labeled like pre-printed. I tried to print it off on like cardstock or something and have them taped to the front of the notebook. Just simple thing. If they all put their note names in different spots, it's a little harder when they turn their spirals into me. So I like to have a really clear system. Like this is where your name is. This is what we tape in. We actually copy down kind of some like big ideas that I think is important to keep in mind for our classroom community as we go through. This is their fourth one. We go over the other ones later on. So that's the front of the spiral. I would say it's helpful to have one spot for all spirals to have the exact same label. I have found compared to previous years where I would get spirals turned in and I like trying to figure out whose was which. Because if you have every class turn their spiral in, that's a long process. And then we tape in our unit table of contents. Now, I know some teachers, including in the Avid system that I work in, I'm a little of an outlier here. They like to have table of contents for the entire semester or even the course. For me, table of contents is by unit. So as every day in class, it's like, okay, it's unit one, lesson one. Let's copy down U1, L1. Here's what we're doing. And then they're going to use that to label their new page in their spiral. So we label by unit, and that also allows me to grade by units. They turn it in, I grade their unit for that spiral, turn it back. The other thing we do, and I actually have them tab with different pieces of colored tape. You can order on Amazon like rolls of like thin strips of different colored tape for pretty cheap. And I just have the kids like they tab their own notebooks, so every unit's color coded. You can imagine like across the school year, it makes it for easier access. And then we also tape in a classmate roster. I have an activity for this as part of our opening day uh, survey where students say not just what their top value is, which is included in our classroom roster, but they also share a fun or boring fact. So we include all of that to kind of build this value of community through our classroom spiral notebooks. So that's all part of the setup early in the year. And then we do like this, like they take notes on like what's true about each other in their spiral. On a day-to-day basis, let's say like you're in my classroom, they're like, that's like start of the year stuff. General start of, you come to my class on a random day, they're going to be filling out their table of contents to start class. Well, maybe we might have had like a warm-up activity. And then they open to a new page in their spiral and they're going to write the essential question at the top. They're going to label it U1, L1 if that's the first day. And then we're going to do whatever we're going to do today in class as we go through it. And then they're going to move through that. We'll do some sort of takeaway at the end. But I have on the board projected, here's what goes in your spiral. And we really move through the course with that as our bread and butter system, where it might be a bell ringer, it might be some notes, it might be we're taping in some stuff and annotating. But that structure is the foundation of what we do in our classroom. It doesn't involve any technology other than I have the slides posted on Canvas if they need them. And that's it in a way. But let me talk through kind of like why I enjoy spiral notebooks too. First is, as I've already noted, it is part of our community building. It's a way for them to get to know each other. It's a way for us to have interactive activities where they're walking around the room, getting stuff, seeing each other's annotations, like that, the tangible thing. And it's also part of the community building is it gets us away from everyone being on their screens all the time, right? Like if you don't have a spiral notebook, I would imagine you're either passing out a lot of paper back and forth or you're on computers a lot. This allows this to be our default, our status quo. And then if we need to hop on the computer for something, that is an option. But I love spirals as a trying to make sure not like an analog classroom. I'm not like part of like the entirety of this like tech backlash, but I want there to be a foundation of our classroom that does not involve technology so that students can be talking to each other, interacting with each other about their learning as much as possible. That starts with our spiral notebook. Second thing is it's a structural building block in terms of how we begin our class, how we end our class with the takeaways you can see kind of on the screen where I try to have them end each lesson with some sort of question that allows them to capture their learning, capture what they're thinking about, and it makes it a part of our routine. And it's something that every student has one. It's why we have like table of contents. I've got the link here. It's also posted on the slide deck that you saw this video from. So there's a lot of things that are like, I think one of the things, let me just add, I know I'm riffing on this. Sorry, it's not prepared as a speech or anything, is that I think there's this mindset that to be creative and flexible and responsive as a teacher, you can't have structures like this in place. In my mind, then when I have a consistent structure like a spiral notebook, it allows me to then be more flexible and creative. So I love having this baseline of like, hey, we've got this spiral notebook. This is our foundation. We move through this every day. Students know what to expect. And then we can vary from there. We can pivot from there. We can jump on computers from there. We can get out of the classroom from there. I like having a solid foundational structure that then gives me the flexibility to pivot. Spirals are part of that. The other thing is spirals can be the friction, right? Like instead of just scrolling through whatever you're reading online or just like flipping through pages, by having them tape in things and highlight and annotate their notes, even like where you copy down, let's say, hey, these are the four most important background notes for Their Eyes Were Watching God. Put a star next to the one that you believe is most important in your notes and add to that. Now go around the room and find what other people starred. Like there's so many like small activities you can do to add friction and reflection. I have self-reflection spaces in the spiral notebook. I'm actually going to lean into from Angela Stockman's pedagogical documentation, do more work with reflection with their spirals this year is the plan. But I think that spirals allow us to slow down, to dive into what's difficult in the learning and the thinking and the reading, and to be reflective as well. Their spirals get messy, and that's okay because for me, it's the messiness is part of the learning process. And I made this note in this post. Ours is not a classroom where it's like, okay, here's slide 25 that you need to copy down, where students just sit down there and copy. Like we do, I'm not going to make them add it to the spiral unless there's value in them adding it to the spiral. And it's a lot of times more for practice and annotating more than just copying down notes. So that's one difference between maybe my classroom and others. And I know other content areas are different. And then the final thing is spirals make my life easier. I am not a pass paper back and forth. It's one of my least favorite things to like collect paper and pass it back and deal with absences. I have a pretty straightforward rubric that makes spiral grading pretty easy because it's not a huge part of their grade and it's more about what they do. It's great for makeup work. I've in some classes I'll have a makeup spiral or have a classroom aide do the makeup spiral. In other classes, I'll just like because I'm printing out like guided notes or for students who are absent or students who need those additional supports. I'll have those already and I'll just tape them in. It's easy for students who are absent to take their spiral, go online and see what they missed and update it. So by having this system, it makes my life easier as a teacher. Just to be straightforward, it's something students can lean on. I will fully admit I'm in a school where most classes have spiral notebooks because we're an avid school, which makes my life easier in getting it started. But I could not, I'm a 12 out of 10 on advocating for spiral notebooks in the classroom. These are some small tips. I think there's ways to vary it towards your context, but I would, if you haven't tried it out, email me. I'd love to like bounce ideas off of like, what does that look like in the classroom? Where do they keep it, etc. Lots of things to say on that, but this video is already getting long, so I'm gonna let it go. So anyhow, good luck with your spiral notebook system. Hopefully this is helpful. Email me if you have questions.